Welcome to Exploring Kabbalah, an introduction to an ancient Jewish mystical tradition, one that's inspired contemporary interest, interpretation, and practice. What were these teachings that were so complex they should remain hidden from the masses?
The way I usually explain it is Kabbalah speaks of two realities. It speaks about the cosmic realities, i.e. the spiritual realities of the universe, God, and the higher realms of existence. And at the very same time, it speaks of the reality inside of us, our spirit that we possess, that we possess inside, that drives us and animates us and inspires us and carries us through our life here on earth. So really, when you look at it, Kabbalah speaks of the macrocosm and the microcosm. It speaks very big, very large. It speaks about God, and I'll use a term now that's a very classic Kabbalistic term. It speaks about sfirot, which are divine emanative energies that are woven in the fabric of creation, which we can talk about at greater length soon. But it speaks of these grand ideas and realms beyond our reality of existence. And it speaks of these higher elements. At the same time, it speaks about what's inside of us. So it's like exploring the beyond and exploring the within. And although it sounds like it couldn't, these two areas of discussion, of focus, of study, couldn't be further from each other, the truth is they are intimately connected. Because when you understand the spiritual energies in the universe, you can understand the spiritual realities inside yourself. And conversely, when you understand the spiritual energies inside yourself, you can understand the patterns of spirituality in the universe itself.
Matter as we know it. Atoms, stars and galaxies, planets and trees, rocks and us. This matter accounts for less than 5% of the known universe. About 25% is dark matter and 70% dark energy, both of which are invisible. This is kind of strange because it suggests that everything we experience is really only a tiny fraction of reality. But it gets worse. We really have no clue what dark matter and energy are or how they work. We are pretty sure they exist though. So, what do we know? Dark matter is the stuff that makes it possible for galaxies to exist. When we calculated why the universe is structured the way it is, it quickly became clear that there's just not enough normal matter. The gravity of the visible matter is not strong enough to form galaxies and complex structures. Stars would more likely be scattered all over the place and not form galaxies. So we know there is something else inside and around them. Something that doesn't emit or reflect light. Something dark. But besides being able to calculate the existence of dark matter, we can see it, kind of. Places with a high concentration of dark matter bend light passing nearby, so we know there's something there that interacts with gravity. Right now, we have more ideas about what dark energy is not than what it is. We know dark matter is not just clouds of normal matter without stars because it would emit particles we could detect. Dark matter is not antimatter because antimatter produces unique gamma rays when it reacts with normal matter. Dark matter is also not made up of black holes, very compact objects that violently affect their surroundings, while dark matter seems to be scattered all over the place. Basically, we only know three things for sure. 1. Something is out there. 2. It interacts with gravity. 3. There is a lot of it.
So there's a verse that I believe King Solomon writes. It's either King Solomon or King David. It's in the Hebrew it's umibsari erzeh elokah. In the English, what it means is from my flesh I perceive the divine. And there are different ways of understanding this. One simple way of understanding this is that the author is saying, from where I stand, I can still behold something greater than myself. Although I stand here on a physical reality, I can still see, I can gaze up and look at and behold something greater than myself. But there's another deeper way of understanding it, and that is, mi b'sari, from my own flesh. When I look at my own self, I can see patterns of the divine. So knowing our own soul actually gives us insight into how God, if you will, operates as well. So these, I would say, if we had to encapsulate what is Kabbalah, what does it speak of, you'll find one of two things. Either it's speaking about God or it's speaking about the soul. That's pretty much it.
Dark matter is probably made up of a complicated exotic particle that doesn't interact with light and matter in a way we expect, but right now, we just don't know. Dark energy is even more strange and mysterious. We can't detect it, we can't measure it, and we can't taste it, but we do see its effects very clearly. In 1929, Edwin Hubble examined how the wavelength of light emitted by distant galaxies shifts towards the red end of the electromagnetic spectrum as it travels through space. He found that fainter, more distant galaxies showed a large degree of redshift. Closer galaxies, not so much. Hubble determined that this was because the universe itself is expanding. The redshift occurs because the wavelengths of light are stretched as the universe expands. More recent discoveries have shown that the expansion of the universe is accelerating. Before that, it was thought that the pull of gravity would cause the expansion to either slow down or even retract and collapse in on itself at some point. Space doesn't change its properties as it expands. There's just more of it. New space is constantly created everywhere. Galaxies are tight-bound clusters of stuff held together by gravity, so we don't experience this expansion in our daily lives, but we see it everywhere around us. Wherever there is empty space in the universe, more is forming every second. So dark energy seems to be some kind of energy intrinsic to empty space. Energy that is stronger than anything else we know and that keeps getting stronger as time passes by.
So the Jewish Bible, the Torah says that Adam and Eve are the first human beings. Adam, according to Jewish tradition, was a Kabbalist. So the very first human being wasn't just, the guy who got kicked out of the Garden of Eden, which he also was. They both got kicked out. But he was also a mystic. Where do we see this? So there's a tradition that Adam, the first day that he was created, and he was created as an adult, he wasn't created as a baby. So in his first few hours of existence, says that he named all of the animals. He gave them their Hebrew names. Now, Hebrew is a very powerful language. It's known as the language of creation itself. The 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are actually the patterns of energy that suffuse reality with life itself. Now, that's another topic that we can get into. But the point is that Hebrew language, the Hebrew letters and Hebrew words are very significant in sort of revealing the energy that drives that thing that's named with that name. So it says that Adam gave all of the animals their Hebrew names, which means that he was able to peer into their soul, and he was able to assess what type of spirit energy that animal had and give the appropriate Hebrew name that reflected that energy. Because as I just mentioned, every Hebrew letter and every Hebrew word carries with it or represents a certain type of divine energy. And
empty space has more energy than everything else in the universe combined. We have multiple ideas about what dark energy might be. One idea is that dark energy is not a thing, but just a property of space. Empty space is not nothing, it has its own energy. It can generate more space and is quite active. So as the universe expands, it could be that just more and more space appears to fill the gaps, and this leads to a faster expanding universe. This idea is close to an idea that Einstein had back in 1917 of a concept of a cosmological constant, a force that counteracted the force of gravity. The only problem is that when we tried to calculate the amount of this energy, the result was so wrong and weird that it only added to the confusion. Another idea is that empty space is actually full of temporary, virtual particles that spontaneously and continually form from nothing and then disappear into nothing again. The energy from those particles could be dark energy. Or maybe dark energy is an unknown kind of dynamic energy fluid or field which permeates the entire universe, but somehow has the opposite effect on the universe than normal energy and matter. But if it exists, we don't know how and where, or how we could detect it.